Excellent. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Meto. I'm the president of UMD, the United Macedonian Diaspora, based out of Washington, DC. I'm really excited to host this last Muabet Meto for 2022. I can't believe that we're literally 2 weeks away from 2023. And I feel, I was just telling Jovan before that I feel like for the last 3 years, we've just lived off of Zoom. But I'm really excited to hold this event, particularly with somebody that I have known for probably about 20 years. Yes, the gray hair can sort of be a testament to that on both of us.
That is the truth.
Dr. Jovan Laskovski, how are you?
I'm doing great, Meto. Thank you for having me. It's an absolute honor, and I'm looking forward to a very spirited Muabet.
Excellent, excellent. Well, for those of our audience that are non-Macedonian, married to Macedonians, or friends of Macedonia, Muabet means conversation. And so we started this series during the pandemic, and we've probably had about a dozen or so since that, and we're really pleased that Jovan could find time out of his busy schedule to join us. But really quickly, Dr. Jovan Laskovski is a board-certified, fellowship-trained orthopedic surgeon. He's a graduate of the University of Akron and Northeast Ohio Medical University. He was a chief resident physician of Summa Health and served his fellowship at the University of Chicago. Dr. Leskovski specializes in hip arthroscopy with a focus on preservation of the native hip joint. He also specializes in sport medicine with an interest in arthroscopic surgery of the hip and shoulder. Dr. Leskovski is an active member of the orthoscopic, sorry, Jovan, I had to literally practice.
No, it's not an easy word to say. I struggle with it from time to time.
It's not when you're not in the medical field, but the Arthroscopy Association of North America, where he serves as a master instructor in the same surgery. He's also an ordinary member of the International Hip Arthroscopy Society and a member of the Multicenter Arthroscopic Society of the Hip. Dr. Leskovski has earned numerous honors and awards, has conducted research, and has been published in a number of areas of orthopedic care. He lectures both nationally and internationally, and he's also involved in teaching multiple surgical surgery courses on arthroscopic surgery throughout the country. Additionally, Dr. Laskovski serves as the head team physician for the University of Akron. He's been a physician since 2006, and something that we're all excited at UMD is that Dr. Laskovski, Jovan, was a recipient of actually our first ever Macedonian Diaspora 40 Under 40 award, and a few years later, his wife, Christina, was one of our recipients, who's a lawyer in Ohio. And so, Jovan, we're pleased that you could join us. And so why don't we start the conversation, the Muabet, and tell us a little bit more about yourself and for our audience that don't know you.
Thank you, Meto. It was a very extensive introduction. You made me sound a little nerdy, which is, I think, okay. So I was born and raised in Canton, Ohio, the son of Rist and Mara. My dad grew up in Sapari, just west of Bitola. My mom grew up in Optichari, and they met in the 70s and got married. My father's family moved to America in the early 60s. And so I have, as you can tell by the suit of armor sitting over there, very deep ties and deep roots to Macedonia. And I love and value that culture so much. I was very fortunate that I grew up in a household where my family lived with my aunt and uncle and my baba and dedo. And it was really special, and it was really amazing because I remember being a young kid, and I learned English basically from Jeopardy. and Wheel of Fortune. My Baba taught us how to speak fluent Macedonian. She was one of the most amazing persons. She just turned 99 in September, which is incredible. But it was ingrained in me from the first moment that I had a memory that I was something special and something different in America. I was Macedonian, and I had this beautiful family that loved me and cared for me. And we had different food and different things that we did, different traditions. And so childhood was a lot of fun, still very, very close with my family, and still love to reminisce on all those memories. We're going to my Baba's house for Christmas this December, and it was a beautiful way to grow up. That being said, eventually you do grow up. And one of the big things that I think you and I have talked about in the past was how being Macedonian can help you as you grow up. And so I learned from a young age, from my Baba, from my Diddle, from my mom and dad, my aunt and uncle, what it meant to have the work ethics that Macedonians have. So I went to college at the University of Akron, and I graduated at age 19. I basically put my shoulder to the grindstone and took 35 credits a semester and finished. And
how did you do? How did you do that at 19? Tell us. What's the
so,
secret?
So I was very, very fortunate. School came very easy to me. I took AP classes and was able to take those credits into college. And then I graduated high school, and 2 weeks later I started college. I was in a program called a combined BSMD. So I got a Bachelor of Science with a minor in chemistry by the time I was 19, but it meant school nonstop all year round. So I graduated high school, went immediately to college, and we just took double the credits that normal people would. Was it a hard road? Indeed, it was a hard road, but it was great because I was done, and then I was ready to start medical school.
Wow, amazing. I think, Jovan, we met probably at a Macedonian convention, and it probably was in Cleveland. I think this was 2002, 2003, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember, and a friend of mine, Danny Domczewski, and so had told me, I think, about you and, this rising star, and somebody on our advisory council, Jerry Naumoff, always brags about Jovan and saying you have to get Jovan more involved, and you have been. You've been so involved in the Macedonian community. But tell us a little bit more about your professional career and why this. Why this specialty in orthopedic surgery and the hip area. Like what sparked that interest?
Yeah, it's interesting because my original goal was to be a history professor. I love history.
That's the goal of a lot of Macedonians.
It is just one of those things that fascinated me as a young kid, and I loved ancient history. I loved Macedonian history from the BC era to the current era. And so I used to be an athlete. I'm getting old now, as you can tell by the gray hair, but broke my ankle when I was a junior in high school. And the plan was I was going to get a college football scholarship and go and get my PhD in history. And so I broke my ankle, never truly recovered. And it was one of those things where I ended up meeting a great orthopedic surgeon who took care of me. He was the first doctor that I ever met that was normal and down to earth and fun to talk to. So I kind of switched gears, got through it. Obviously, as somebody who used to be an athlete, I fell in love with the sports medicine side of orthopedics. My father, who I love very much, could fix anything, even without YouTube or a cell phone or anything else. So in the 80s, 90s, we would just fix things around the house. We would work on my old car, which is an old Pontiac Trans Am. And I fell in love with working with my hands. So I fell in love with orthopedics because that's what you got to do. Is I got to take care of people like me that are athletes and be able to fix them. The hip part really kind of came out of a love of the complex. So hip arthroscopy was basically something that maybe 3 people did in the 90s and maybe 20 people did from 2000 to 2010. And so I was in fellowship at the University of Chicago, and a man walked in the room named Dr. Bird. And Dr. Bird gave a lecture on arthroscopic labral repair, so cartilage repair in the hip through 2 poke holes this big. And I sat in the audience and I looked at that man and I said, I want to be him when I grow up. I want to do this. And it was, and still remains, the technically most complicated surgery in orthopedics. But I fell in love that day, and I dedicated my life and my career to doing that. And he was the inspiration, and I was lucky enough to do a fellowship where I was able to train in that. And then I traveled around the US and internationally with people that had invented new surgeries. And it just inspired me to try and do what Alexander the Great did, to do what my grandfather had the guts to do, which was come to America all alone and be able to forge something great for himself. So that was really the spark that made me go into arthroscopic hip surgery.
Wow. Huh. You know, I'm first of all, kudos in the medical field and your specialty. You know, I think I wanted to become a historian at some point, and then I shifted. But isn't that usually like our parents are like, either you're going to become a lawyer or a doctor? We didn't come to this country, you know, for you not to succeed. And so I think that, you know, hardworking ethic that our, you know, parents instilled in our baba and dedos, and very similar. I mean, I grew up with my, you know, grandparents and, you know, hearing the stories and you must work hard or else you're going to work the fields or you're going to work in a factory. And that's not why we came to, you know, the US. And so I commend you. I thank you, you know, for everything that you're doing. And so I wanted to, you know, one, I think, you know, over you know, these few years of knowing each other, I've also witnessed what you've done with, you know, one, you've gone over to Macedonia and you've trained some doctors. Tell us about that experience in Bitola and other places, and what drew you to do that. You don't have to, right? You don't, you're of Macedonian heritage. You don't necessarily have to give back to the medical field in Macedonia, but you chose to do something, to make a change, to make an impact. Why?
Yeah, so it wasn't a training expedition in Bitola. I was still in school and I was still you know, coming up through the ranks of medical school and residency, and I went over just to see what surgery was like there and to experience it firsthand. And Dr. Leskovski was a very kind and very great surgeon. I wanted to know, and it's almost that kind of foresight where you say, okay, if I can do these goals and dreams that I have, what can I do to give back to our community and to be able to give back to Macedonia? And I've had this dream for a number of years, and unfortunately, COVID put a big hamper on it. It would be great to host an orthopedic surgery academic meeting in Macedonia and call it the Balkan Hip Conference, and to be able to bring people from Serbia, Bulgaria, Albania, Greece, and to be able to bring the best minds of the Balkans and marry them with the best minds that are in the international arthroscopy world, which I've been fortunate enough to get great connections and be able to do the things that I've been, you know, lucky enough to be invited to be able to bring what we all do in America and bring that to Macedonia, and to elevate that level of care and to make it something where it can become a hub for you know, medicine and advancing medicine. Because I can tell you my experience there. You talk about brilliant minds, you talk about amazing diagnosticians, you talk about amazing technical surgeons. They have so much talent and so much just raw capacity there that it could really become something that I think is something great.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because, well, one, hopefully, you know, somebody from the foreign ministry will see this video, or the health ministry, and sort of say, you know what, we love Jovan's idea and we're gonna, you know, contact him and run with this. You know, we at UMD about a year and a half it took to get a container of medical equipment over to Macedonia. And thanks to the assistance of World Medical Relief in Michigan, and a young Macedonian who's a rising, medical student in Chicago at the moment, Alexander Bezanovsky, who spearheaded this from their organization, was an intern for World Medical Relief. It took us a while, finally got all the approvals, everything. We sent over this, container of medical equipment worth $500,000. And we were a little bit concerned because we've sent over medical equipment in the past, and then we would see it, pictures where it's still laying at the hospital and nobody's used it. And one of the biggest obstacles or, information that we're getting on the ground is that a lot of the medical professionals are leaving the country. And so there's for better opportunities in Germany and other European countries. And so who are the people that are going to be left to use these medical instruments and machines and all that kind of stuff? And there's this huge brain drain going on, particularly in the medical industry in Macedonia. And I'm wondering, what can be done and how do we, and what, you're a doctor, you're a medical professional. There's so many others, I'm sure, like you that are Macedonian throughout the diaspora. And I think there is a serious need of, getting together and not just in your specialty, but in other areas, and make Macedonia some kind of hub. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
Meto, what I would say is, the brain drain is a real thing. And, we have so many intelligent people in Macedonia, and we have so many people that could do good there. Again, I think connections are critical, where that we can get something set up where we have extremely intelligent doctors that can do amazing work. And how do we make it more attractive for them to stay there? Let's try and do these things, make it a place where meetings are hosted, where there's academic research, where there's an environment where doctors are able to thrive and be happy. The biggest thing that I learned, I had a surgeon visit in October. He was the traveling fellow for the International Society for Hip Arthroscopy, Paul Haggis. And even the break between what happens in America and what happens in England, and what he kind of taught me about medicine in Europe in general, is that, it may not be the most efficient, it may not be something that is inviting, but he wanted to take those ideas and bring them back home. Like, why can't we innovate a little bit? And let's, instead of being able to do 2 surgeries a day, can we push it to 3? How can we make it a more efficient and better way that we can take great care of people, B, get the best outcomes for people that we have, and C, make it a great work environment? And one of the things that I do, and this is the Macedonian in me, is I run my staff and my employees as if they were family. I treat my scrub tech as if he was a brother, my nurses as if they're sisters. And Paul had commented, he goes, we call this in England a flat hierarchy, because everyone knows you're in charge, but everyone's one team together. And I think that's the way that we can make Macedonian medicine better and be able to keep more people there, where it's an environment where everyone's respected, kind, we can work efficiently, and we can pool our resources through UMD and whatever connections I have within the medical industry to help pump more opportunity into the country for better care.
And there is an opportunity, truly. I mean, how many times have we heard people from Greece travel to Bitola to do their dentistry, dental work? I'll be frank with you, I don't think I have seen a dentist in America for the last 12 years because my dentist is in Macedonia. And so every time I would go, I would, see a friend that actually did her work in Washington, D.C., and then went back to Macedonia and set up a shop, and now is her own small business owner doing dental work, and so it's amazing. And so I'm so pleased when I hear of people going back and helping the homeland, turning that brain drain into brain gain. And it's so needed. And, every time we advocate, at UMD or talk about anything related to Macedonia, we're like, it's the crossroads of the Balkans, north, south, east, west. There's so many opportunities. We just have to make sure, one, we work together, we unite, and really move forward and make an impact. And so I want to kind of bring it back down a little bit into sort of the local community. And you're involved with your church, your Macedonian Businessmen's Club in Akron, Ohio. Tell us a little bit more about the local community and any lessons that you could give to other Macedonian communities or Macedonians around the world that are listening. Like, what's so special about your community? And I'm not saying that that you need to state that it's, oh, my community is better than your community. I'm just saying, like, is there any way, are there any lessons that you can give to others, around the world based on your upbringing in your community?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson that I can give was from my Dedo Pizzo. My Dedo Jona was my father's father, and Dedo Pizzo was his brother. And he taught us this lesson at a young age. And he would take a little stick off a tree and he would say, Vidi, jedno se skrše, nogu easy. And he would take 14 branches. And he said, can't break it. And it was really a seminal moment in my life to hear that story, because together there really is nothing that we can't do. My community is really interesting in Akron because we have multi-generational Macedonians. We have Macedonians that like Bill Chris, who's an incredible attorney here in town, that is third generation Macedonian. Obviously his parents' last name was changed when they immigrated over. But we also have people like me and people that have come over that are generation zero. And the thing that I would take home is that if we can stand together, there really is nothing that we can't do. One of the things that I envy very much of the Greek community or the Italian community or the Polish community or the Jewish community is they have community centers. There's a Jewish community center in Akron, many of them. There's an Italian center in Akron, and more than one. And if we can get past, I think COVID really screwed things up big time, because COVID gave everybody excuse to say, nah, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go to this. I'm going to cancel that. I am just a little too busy. The ability to say no is so easy, but once you get there and you're around your own people and you can share ideas and it's face to face, it is so unbelievably powerful. I met Emma face to face at the Macedonian Business Club, and there is no substitute for that. Like me and you in a room right now would be 1,000 times better than us on Zoom. But it's one of those things where those are the lessons that I would take. What I loved about my childhood and growing up Macedonian was that feeling of togetherness and a feeling of belonging to something that was greater than you and something that made you feel special and made you feel different. And in some ways, that difference in school, like, yeah, you got Jovan, what kind of name is that? But it was something that made me feel different and made me feel motivated that, I am something special in this country. And those are my takeaway points from growing up in Ohio and living here and being part of this community is that specialness that makes us, that makes us Macedonian and nothing else, is something that we need to stand united behind, and we need to move forward as a people together.
I couldn't agree more with you. I will do make a plug for the Akron community. And one, I'm so impressed with the unity and supporting one another. The Macedonian Businessmen's Club, I mean, founded in the 50s to, if there's a Macedonian doctor, we go to that doctor. If there's a Macedonian lawyer, we go to that Macedonian lawyer. If there's a baker, we go to that baker. It's supporting one another. And I've always believed that Macedonians are responsible for one another. And I hope that we could sort of take that model, for example, the Macedonian Businessmen's Club model, and bring that to other communities. And we're working, together on that. But it's always been, I guess, Macedonians have been the most successful when we unite to do something together. Back in the day when Macedonia declared independence, I heard stories of a group of doctors from Canada got together and they managed to get sort of like a container of like $2 million worth of pharmaceutical products to Macedonia because of the embargo from Greece on Macedonia. And they couldn't really get much in, and they finally managed, through the help of, believe it or not, Ohio Senator George Voinovich, the late George Voinovich. And so it's, when we come together, we're unstoppable, I think. And and this is one of the reasons why even UMD was formed, and one of the reasons why we decided to push this Macedonian American Heritage Month resolution in Congress, which you're mentioned in. And I'm pleased one of our members, Tatiana Bozinovsky, spoke about you and other successful Macedonians from Ohio during, testimony. But, we need to do a better job of educating the public of the impact that we've made on American society and society in general in Canada and Australia and Europe, and that you are a positive role model for younger Macedonians. And so I want to kind of shift the conversation now to sort of like the next generation. And you're the father of 3 young children, and mashallah. And so what are you teaching them in terms of your Macedonian heritage, you and Christina?
Yeah, thank God for my wife, because she's the most incredible person I've ever met in my life. Still my dream come true, and the best mom and the best wife that you could ever imagine, the best partner that I could ever have. So our culture is important. Our traditions are important. And so obviously they interact with Bab and Dedo, and they know what Zelnik and Maznik is, and Tavche Grafsh and all that good stuff. But it's important for me on 2 levels to pass on what I love very much. So level number 1 is my grandfather he never missed a Sunday at church. I have a great faith in the man above, and I don't think I could have done anything in my life without that faith. And so faith is very important to us, and that's something that I want passed on to them, and I want them to know that they're Macedonian Orthodox Christians, and that our values continue through the church and through the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. How you conduct yourself means everything. My grandfather, he really taught me how to be a man, in the sense that he taught me how to treat people with respect and kindness, and how to always lend a helping hand to anybody that needed it, no matter what. And those are all our Macedonian Christian values. The second is the cultural side of things. So they have a Macedonian tutor who they Zoom. She was from Cincinnati, from Skopje originally, Cincinnati, and they Zoom from California, and they do their Macedonian lessons weekly. And we practice our Macedonian with each other, and we want to make sure that we can say Baba Yasaka Mushidna Palachinka. The things that will continue to perpetuate our language, because as you know, our language is a struggle to be identified and recognized, and it was through the work of academics that it was. And then also the things like Slava, the things like, Macedonian Christmas, because that's a whole separate holiday for us. Veliden is our Veliden, and the reason it is our Veliden is because it was calculated off the original calendar from Jesus's birth. And so all those cultural things, I can tell you that my sons have both held that Macedonian falcata and that sarissa in 3 pieces behind me, that they understand that our people are an ancient people in continuity, that we've had our struggles, we've had the things that have gone wrong for us, our struggle for independence, our struggle for our own identity, our struggle to become a united peoples over time has been so hard. And I want them to know how lucky they are to be Macedonian, to look back on this past. Like, look at the guts that your Delo had to take a factory job in Canton, Ohio and work steel. Look at the guts of your grandfather De Leone to be able to pick up and leave Tapari and come to America and build a life for yourselves. Look at all these things and then think about that country and all the people that are there, and you thank God for the place that you were born, for where you grew up, but also think about where your roots and heritage came from for thousands of years. And so those are my big things for the future, and the things that I want to teach my kids moving forward, and as they become adults, to never forget where they came from, who they are, and what their culture is.
I really like the word guts, because I think all of us, any generation, first, second, third, fourth, whatever, can relate, because it was not easy, for our forefathers, our ancestors, for all the challenges, that they went through, and instilling that in your children and our children, and the future generations, I think is so important, to not forget where we come from, where our roots are from, what happened in our history, why it's so important to continue fighting for that right to self-determination wherever we may be, and our people are still facing challenges, despite, the obviously people, I don't think anybody that's Macedonian was pleased with the name change, or any of those, sort of things that have happened in the last few years. But our brothers and sisters in other countries, like in Bulgaria, in Greece, in parts of Albania, still don't enjoy, where you're able to teach your children Macedonian. In some of these places, they're not able to, right? And we need to continue that fight. And so I'm really pleased that you brought up the language. I think the common, even with my sister, most of the time we speak in English, and that's not because, we don't know Macedonian or we don't want to speak Macedonian. We're so accustomed every day speaking in English. However, making sure that we make an effort to at least, I speak Macedonian to my parents, and to a lot of, family members and all that stuff, but I didn't have access to a Macedonian language school growing up. My church didn't do it at the time. Now they do. I'm really pleased, and that's why UMD set up. And actually, I remember either you or Christina had reached out to me and asked me if there was Macedonian language classes that were being conducted for children. And there are different entities, and there's a Macedonian language e-learning center in North Carolina and others. And now more and more churches are allowing or have classes for Macedonian language. But that's something UMD wanted to do. And recently we launched a class for children, and we had about 25 or so students. And now we're continuing that for adults. And we already have a lot of people signed up for starting January. And so it's really important to learn the language, to be able to speak, or at least as you said, Baba Dedo Sakam Palachinka, to know the key words. but I think it also enriches you, right? The more languages you know, the better it is. And when I was in college, I was able to take Russian, and it was so easy to learn some Russian because I knew Macedonian, right? And so you can learn languages that are spoken by 200 million or so folks around the world.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, and I will tell you, I'm envious of the Greeks have the Greek church, and they've got Greek school, and they've got Greek basketball, and they've got Greek softball and baseball, and that is what I think our goal should be. Is there's already a framework there. Other cultures have done it, and we can easily replicate that and make it something where it will continue to perpetuate our culture and our language and our identity. And it's tough because I think we started way behind the starting line if you're talking about track and field, but I think it can be easily caught up to if we can get a dedicated group of people that are united, that say, okay, we're going to do this through UMD, and it's going to be something where we have a cultural language school that we're going to disseminate through whatever means necessary, be it the church, be it Macedonian Business Club, whatever it may be, but something that can be that is accessible for everybody, and it can allow the learning of our culture and language.
And also, strengthening those bonds, right? Through sports, through culture, through food. I remember there was a meeting that we had at the White House years ago, and we had asked this one person, why can't we get that message across about the Macedonian community, or what's going on? We're not getting that support that we want. And he was like, look, almost every single town in America has a Greek festival, right? And we do have Macedonian festivals, but I feel that, or I've seen in certain communities, I think it's a lot more, but we're very, I think it's the same with a lot of immigrant groups, more or less, but for some reason with certain ones, they've been able to promote. And then the other thing I think is also having countries that support you, right? Greece has had a nation state that has supported their Greek diaspora for 200 years, right? We have not had an independent homeland for a long time. A lot of the stuff that most, your parents, my parents, others that were doing in our communities I remember my dad, telling me, be careful, the Bulgarians would come and bring books to our church saying you're Bulgarian, and the Yugoslav spying, services would be watching you, and be careful what you're doing. And so it was a very difficult. And so now that we finally do have an independent country, I think, those positive role models like you and others in our community, having more cultural festivals that are not just geared towards our community, but also to non-Macedonians, spreading our culture, our food, our wine, our dancing, our traditions, I think is really important. And while we're having this conversation, I also do want to remind people that they can insert questions in the chat option. We're happy to take some audience questions as well. Jovan, going back to the youth, there was I think it was like right around when Macedonia had the tragic floods that hit Stajkovci, I think in 2016, there was an Olympic swimmer, Anna Bogdanovski, which wanted to, or is now a doctor or soon to be. She's a former Olympic swimmer, and we featured her in one of our events. She was on our 40 under 40 list, and you reached out to her and wanted to learn more about her specialty or what she's aiming, and you co-published something. Tell us a little bit more about how that came about and why, again, you, based on this conversation, I think everybody knows that you're a caring, you want to help Macedonians, individual, you're a go-getter, but why specifically did you reach out to Anna, and what's she doing these days?
So, what's amazing about it is, I'm flipping through my Google feed and I hear about this Macedonian Olympian. And next thing you know, she's going to medical school and she wants to do orthopedic surgery and sports medicine. So thanks to you, we were able to connect. And, the world is constantly evolving, constantly changing. So when I was in school, getting my doctorate, it was like considered amazing if you had one or maybe two papers that you published during your 4 years in your doctorate. Now the standard is becoming 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's meant to be something that if you want to get into a field as difficult as orthopedics, that you need to have a lot of publications. So I connected with Anna. She was amazing, just exactly like you, smart, motivated, sharp, had a goal, knew what she wanted to do. And I said, I want to be able to help you. I go, do you want any help with publications? Can I put you on a project? Is there anything that I can do to be able to help you further your career? And she said, yes, publications are badly needed and I need to be part of it. So she teamed up with a couple of local med students that I had here and a couple of my residents, and we wrote up a new surgery on rotator cuff repair and how to augment it using cadaver tissue, essentially. So this gal ends up being super motivated, edits the paper, does all the research, literature, background. I mean, these are things that normally when Christina and the kids are in bed, it's 1 a.m. in here and I'm typing and doing all this stuff on my own. So she was an absolute superstar from the start. So very, very proud to have published that paper with her. And, the day that it came out, when the editor gave me the thumbs up, immediately texted her. And it was a proud moment. It was a proud moment for a couple reasons, but the biggest reason was that it was a fellow Macedonian that did it. This was something she wanted to do, that she took the lead on, and that was an absolute superstar from the start. And it's almost the pride I have. Like, I get an email from Christopher's teacher saying he's an absolute phenomenon in math, and he just took the 5-minute test and was done in a minute and a half. It was that level of pride that, like, thank God I could help this gal, and how special she is, and anything along the way that she needed, I would be happy to bend over backwards for her. And I think that that's something in our community. And I'm sure we'll talk about it in a second, my vision for mentorship and how that should happen through UMD. That single act gave me more joy than anything that I could describe. It's, you can buy a brand new suit and you're like, oh, I'm happy for 2 weeks. This was something that was just something that was special, that was one of our people, that was able to do something magnificent. And I was proud just to be able to open that door. But I opened the door and she didn't walk through it, she ran through it. And that's the type of thing that I think that we in the Macedonian community that are fortunate enough to have good careers, that we need to go out and be able to be available to anybody who asks for help. And that we can't do the work for them, but if we can open a door, then by God, let's open that door for them.
I love that. And I've always looked at UMD as sort of like a liaison for and connecting. How there's this t-shirt, Rakia connecting people, and I'm all about
it
UMD.
Does connect people. It does connect
it
people.
does, you're right. And UMD connecting people, and that's one of the reasons why we formed this 40 under 40 list, that now we have 280 people. We just released the list a couple of months ago for this year, and we're already getting nominations for next year. How do we harness the potential there of all these people serving as those role models for the younger generation, and what you described of helping Anna in her education and her career, opening those doors for her, I think is an example. And so, yes, I'd love to. Why don't we delve into this mentorship sort of idea and see what we can do with this? Like, have you discovered any other Macedonians since, in this field? And if anybody is listening, Jovan's available to mentor.
Well, you better believe it. You'll probably be annoyed with me as much as I want to be able to help. So I have discovered a couple others. Chris Efremov is a fellow at New England Baptist in Boston. So one of my very close colleagues through the teaching circuit, Dr. Thomas Wirtz, who is an amazing guy, who's a surgeon in Boston who does what I do, randomly sent me a text and said, "You won't believe it, but my fellow is Macedonian. He's from Skopje." And I said, "You got to be kidding me." So he sends me this picture, and that's Chris and Thomas. And so immediately I go, cell phone now. And boom, immediately start with the text messages and start to collaborate and figure out what he wants to do with his career, what he wants to do with his life, and how I can help. My vision, and Em and I talked about this pretty in depth, is that we set up basically a list of those that are willing to mentor, to give their time, to give their expertise to young Macedonians, both here and around the world. And we organize it by, okay, what is your interest? Is it law? Is it medicine? Is it a small business owner? And then also have a secondary page where you say, well, hey, I just moved to Ohio and I don't know any Macedonians. Are there any Macedonian families that are willing to mentor and help out? And sure enough, the Leskovskis are here. We're happy to help. I've had surgeons visit me from Denmark and England and all over the US, and Christina, I've hosted them over here. But do you know what kind of joy I would have to have like a Macedonian here next to me? We're reviewing MRIs together. We're planning out surgeries together. Let me teach you all the mistakes that I made the last 10 years as a surgeon. Let me show you how to avoid those mistakes. Let me show you how to try to shoot for perfect. And that kind of, again, and my leadership style is just family style. I treat my employees and those that I train like they're my own blood. And I think if you do that, and I think if our people can do that, to say, okay, we're going to unite and we're just going to, you're Macedonian, I'm Macedonian, you're my fifth cousin, you're my nothing cousin, but let me pass on as much knowledge as I can to you, and let me make you the best at whatever it is that you strive to become.
I couldn't agree more. And something that we're doing it through UMD is this program called Generation M. And a lot of the times it's when people reach out to us and they're asking for advice or connections with people. We've hosted Macedonian interns in Washington that wanted to, start a career in international relations or things like that. What I'm thinking right now is we do need those professional associations for Macedonians, like a Macedonian American Medicals Association, Medical Professionals Association, or a Macedonian Lawyers Association, or whatnot. And having more professionalizing our community, and then our younger leaders will see that and want to, and who knows, I mean, I think this, and a lot of people that are parents know this, is that, during the developmental stages, that's when a lot of these kids, I could ask my niece right now, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she'll tell you, some kind of scientist or engineer or whatever, and they're only, she's only 11. And so we could even, I don't know. I mean, I'm so impressed with social media and the access to, the younger and younger, they know a lot more. They're more tech savvy. They're doing more research. They're learning about, what they want to be when they grow up, a lot more than us, right? And so I think there's ways to guide if people want to become a doctor, if people, they want to become a lawyer or a small business owner. Start from the, start early, support them from an early age, because you never know what's going to happen in the future. But then obviously when they are in college, they're looking for opportunities, and some don't know where to seek those opportunities. And what better way than seeking it in your own community, where you go to church, or have, attend those slavas where you may meet a Jovan, and you hear his story and say, you know what, I want to be a Jovan one day.
Yeah, Meto, I think the what's behind you is the truth. United, because I went through my experience through college and med school all alone. I didn't have a Macedonian doctor that I could talk to. I didn't have any physician other than the guy who took care of my broken ankle to kind of guide me through it. And so I felt, and it was a terrible feeling. I felt alone. And it shouldn't have to be like this. When there's so much talent and so much intelligence within our community, it's about shepherding everybody together and being able to have a united community where you say, okay, well, little Christopher, let's say, wants to become a lawyer. Well, I'm a doctor, but maybe I know a lawyer that can help him, and creating a network and making it something that's defined. I think what you said, social media is extremely powerful. In some ways very annoying to me, but very powerful, because it is something that can instantaneously connect people. Whereas, like, back in the days, like, well, somebody from Zapari moved to Indiana, Baba Steva is going to call Baba Petrets on the phone, and that's how they're going to get connected. It is a powerful tool, and it's something that needs to be explored, needs to be harnessed, because with the level of talent that we have within the Macedonian community, again, you take one branch, you can break it easy. You take 400, you're not going to break them. And it's one of those things that has eluded us as a Macedonian community for a long time, is our ability to stand together and stand as one.
So we have a question in among the audience, and I guess if I could just add on, I guess, how do you get all Macedonians united in the community? I guess what are some tips that you have, like what can bring more unity within our or inspire more unity within our community?
So I would say that to get all to come is a very big ask, a very, very big ask. I've always kind of followed the principle that if it's fun, then people will want to be a part of it. And so I do, for my office and OR staff, I always do a Christmas party and a summer party, and all the pretenses are dropped. This is not going to be some stuffy thing where we're wearing shirts and ties and suits and everything else. It's, let's really just like, okay, you're a doctor, guess what? Here, you're not a doctor. And Christina, you're a lawyer. You're not a lawyer here. We're just Jovan and Christina. And let's get to know each other. Let's have fun, have some rakia, have some salata, and make it something where it makes it fun for the community. What the Macedonian Businesses Club did, obviously was paused during COVID. We had a fun 50-50 reverse raffle. It was just getting together with people that I hadn't seen in years because COVID ruined everything. And when you can make it fun and make it something enjoyable, that's a great way to unite people. And then also make it something where it's culturally significant for those under. If we can get a Macedonian band, have them play some Macedonian music. Let's teach, my little Alexander how to dance Macedonian. 1, 2, 3, left step, right step. 1, 2, 3, left step, right step. When the kids have fun, and when it's fun for the adults, and when it's something that is, it's not stuffy, and it's something that's laid back, and there's a lot of hugs and a lot of people getting to know one another. Those are the things that unite people. I'm not a very conflict kind of person. I like things that are where we can all get along with and all be able to have fun. And so I try to live my life in that way that my grandfather did, where you're trying to spread joy, you're trying to make somebody's day, you're trying to say, hey, good morning, how's your day going? Or hey, let's have some fun. Let me teach you. I know the paidushko. I learned that from dancing in church as a young kid. And I am happy to demonstrate that for Alex and Ella and Christopher, because it's one of my favorite dances. It will make me sweat at 41, but that's something that's special that I want to share with others. And those are the things I think that bring people together.
I so agree with you. And we have a annual masquerade party in Washington, D.C. that we've been doing for the last 17 years. And we sort of brought two traditions. One is the Vevchani Carnival that has been going on for like 1400 years, where everybody, dresses up in costumes and parades, somewhat of a pagan probably tradition more than an Orthodox. And then we teamed, kind of paired that up with old Macedonian New Year's. And let me tell you, it's probably the most fun event that we do, where everybody's dressed up in it's a little bit stuffy, perhaps, in the sense of like you have to wear, everybody's dressed in tuxedos and ball gowns, however, masks, and they're, dancing, having fun, trying our foods and rakia and wine and all that stuff. And it's always really popular for our non-Macedonian guests. So if anybody's around in Washington on January 14th, join.
In Australia, in Canada, wherever it is, all of us together, united, that can make a big difference.
Thank you, Jovan. Actually, it's a little bit late in Macedonia, but we do have our Macedonia director, Gordan Jordanov, participating, and he asked, do you believe establishing communication between professional leaders in the diaspora and the youth in Macedonia might help in prospering the homeland, and how, I guess?
Yeah, I think, again, my dream and my vision would be to have an orthopedic meeting in Macedonia where we can bring together some of the greatest minds in the world, and then also have the Macedonian orthopedic community together. And the long and the short is, I think that anybody who's aspiring, a young kid in Bitola or Tsapari or Skopje or Tetovo, that wants to have an opportunity to be able to experience, what is it like to be an orthopedic surgeon? What is it like to be a lawyer? What is it like to be a judge? What is it like to own your own business? That's incumbent upon us to share and give back to the community. And if that young kid, if I can make that young kid an orthopedic surgeon who's one of the greatest in the world, then I can live the rest of my life being happy that I know that I gave back to somebody who's somebody of my own culture, my own blood, that has achieved something really special. So I think it is important for us to give back, especially the homeland. Let's stop the brain drain, and let's keep all the talent that we can at the homeland and elevate everybody up as much as possible.
Thank you, Jovan. And in the chat, you're getting some amazing comments, and I couldn't agree more. That you're a great example, and how we all need to sort of behave and respond. And some cousins, I guess, attending, but I think this. It goes back to this: Macedonians are responsible for one another, and I'm so pleased that you're giving all these messages publicly. Somebody that is successful in their career, that is proud to be Macedonian, and is proud to state that publicly, is not afraid, and wants to help. And I want to ask you is why are organizations like UMD so important? I guess just a sort of like a 1-2 liner for people, like why support organizations like UMD or the Macedonian Businessmen's Club or others? Why should Macedonians stay involved and be involved in these types of organizations?
I mean, truly, without a shepherd, sheep are easily scattered. And I think that you look at Macedonian history and you look at what our people have gone through over the past 2,000 plus years, it's very easy to divide people when there is no shepherd to keep us all together. And like the Macedonian Business Club, like UMD, there has to be a central core that can unite us all and keep us all together. Without that, then, somebody moves off to Detroit, they're Macedonian, they don't teach their kids the language, and within 3 generations, last name like Christovsky means nothing. And the there has to be a uniting force behind all of us. You know, like I said earlier, my vision is for us that have been able to, you know, achieve something of themselves in their professional career, to give back all they can selflessly, and to do that in a way to benefit the younger community, to benefit our community as a whole, and to keep us all as one. And without something uniting us, we just become fractured little segments in the country. And then arguments can happen, and then that fractures it even further. And that's why it's important to support UMD. That's why it's important to support the Macedonian Businessmen's Club, is that we need something to unite us and to keep us all together.
Thank you so much, Jovan, for that message. And I would be very disappointed if I didn't mention this connection here while we're on this Muabet Meto. But one of the first people I met from Tsapari, believe it or not, was a lady by the name of Ambassador Ljubica Achevska, who was Macedonia's first ambassador to Washington, D.C., to the United States, and really was the person that established the U.S.-Macedonian relationship. And when I first moved to DC in 2003, that was the first person I reached out to. I'm like, you know what? I want to learn from her how to succeed in Washington. And believe it or not, she became my first mentor in Washington, DC. And fast forwarding now, what Ljubica has done is we established a congressional internship program for Macedonian students that want to intern in the U.S. Capitol, the U.S. Congress, for a member of Congress. And so, you know, what is it about all these Tsapari folks that want to be mentors to the young generation? There must be something in the water.
Definitely something in the water. Or maybe we're just elevated a little too high. We don't get enough oxygen.
Well, Jovan, any final thoughts, any advice that you give to us at UMD? And you had referred to Emma before. Emma Brown is our UMD Director of Development and Advancement based in Washington, who had attended that event. But any sort of advice for us, any advice for the young generation to conclude tonight's program?
I think the advice is very straightforward. I think it's what I grew up learning from my Delo and Baba and from my mom and dad and my relatives, and that's that there is no substitute for hard work. You set a goal for yourself and you make sure that you achieve that goal, no matter what. It's easy to give up. It's easy to be lazy. It's easy to say, man, this is just too hard. You know, I give a lot of credit to my father, who was a very stern but very smart guy. And I remember I was just overwhelmed in medical school because college came relatively easy to me. And I remember we covered a semester of biochemistry in 2 hours. And for the first time ever, I had to literally study really, really hard to keep up with all the stuff that was coming at me. And my dad goes, no, you can do this. You can do this. And I go, I don't know if I can do this, Dad. And he goes, oh, well, then you just quit. You can go work at the factory with me. You could be a nurse. You can do whatever you want. Go ahead, quit. And he just knew that way to draw that little bit out of me that I needed to say, you know what, Jovan, you're not a quitter. You're not a quitter, and you can get through this and you will endure. And that's what I will tell everybody on the call, is that there's nothing that can't be achieved through hard work and that dedication where you say, I will endure. I will endure until I achieve that goal.
Well, it goes back in that, you know, that I guess that ancient history and the challenges that we face throughout history, and how many times we've had to endure obstacles and dictatorships and tyranny and all that. And so many people fled our homeland, over 125 years ago and since, to come to America to give a better opportunities for their children. And people like our parents that came 60s, my parents came in the 70s, for a better future here. And so I think this leaves us on a very positive note. I'm so happy, Jovan, we were able to do this. I know you're a very busy man, particularly, one with your career, but family, and for you finding time to speak with me, to speak with our audience, and tell us a little bit more about your Macedonian upbringing and sort of, how that correlates to your career and your family values. And so thank you again, Jovan.
It was my pleasure, Meto, and my honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone who attended tonight's Muabet Meto with Dr. Jovan Laskovski. To everyone listening on Facebook, this video will also be, we have a recording and it will be on YouTube, and whoever is listening in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, whether you want to be an orthopedic surgeon like Jovan and need somebody to be your mentor, or in another industry profession. We're happy to be that liaison relationship broker for you and the Macedonian community. And thank you very much for supporting UMD, and we'll all be back in the new year. Happy holidays, Srećan Božić and Srećna Nova Godina. Have a good night. Thank you, Jovan.